My name is Rob Faulkner. I'm a Senior Solutions Specialist here at Smoothwall. I'm joined today with Chris Skinner from our partners National Online Safety. We're going to talk about online safety training and education and some of the changes over the last year to the guidance produced by the government. Before we start, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Chris Skinner. I'm a senior consultant for National Online Safety. I'm a former head of communications for a large local authority, one of only 3 Ofsted rated outstanding authorities in the UK. Former member of the LSCB, former member of both foster and adoption panels, worked with the police, safer neighbourhoods, youth offending, social services and schools up and down the country in relation to safeguarding children and young people for the best part of 20 years now, Rob. Over and above that, I am the senior consultant at National Online Safety, so I do all our webinars and keynote speeches and those sorts of things, and work with schools up and down the country in relation to raising awareness of online safety, particularly for professionals working with children and children themselves.
So firstly, tell us about keeping children safe in education. Why has it changed again and what do we need to know?
I think it's keeping children safe in education, a very important document. Statutory guidance, all schools must adhere to, of course. The changes this year are not as significant as the changes that were made last year. There have been some subtle changes this year in terms of online safety, but they are subtle changes rather than whole-scale changes. It's still very much the fundamentals around what was put in place in 2018. So it's still very much talking about ensuring that schools take a whole school community approach to online safety. Gone are the days where this was the preserve of a couple of people within the IT section. They're now talking about whole school communities. So they're talking about staff, they're talking about leaders, they're talking about middays, they're talking about governors, and indeed, of course, they're talking about parents. So really important that a whole school community approach is taken to the awareness of online safety. In particular, there's been a very subtle change around the role of the DSL this year in 2019. Last year in 2018, the DSL statutorily responsible for online safety in schools. That continues to be the case, statutorily still the responsibility of the DSL. Last year, it said that the DSL had a responsibility to ensure the whole school community was regularly updated. This year, it takes a slightly different tack on that, and what it says now is that it's the DSL's responsibility to ensure that they access regular training in order to stay up to date with current online risks, and that's something that we at National Online Safety can help with, and indeed do help with a lot of our schools. The document goes further. It highlights specific issues around SEND pupils. I don't like the phrase they use. They talk about DSLs having to have an understanding of the additional risks faced by SEND pupils. My view is that there is no additional risk to SEND pupils. My view is there's a heightened risk to SEND pupils. And again, that's something that at National Online Safety we help with. We can provide training in that respect. Guidance is really explicit this year as well. It also says that all staff should receive training in safeguarding and in online safety. So they're very explicit this year that they're expecting every single member of staff to have specific online safety training. That training has to include links back to radicalisation, so you have to have links back to your prevent strategy. So whatever online safety training is in place, awareness of social media and how pupils can become radicalised via those methods has to be included within that safety training.
So really that you've got a single DSL who's not only responsible for safeguarding of students, but also training everybody in the school on online safety as well.
Absolutely, and it's amazing really when you think about this. Online safety is such a huge area. I'm quite lucky because I get to sit in front of cameras and I get to go and talk at keynote speeches and things like that about online safety. The reality is there's a whole team of people back in the office who are feeding me information on a daily basis. Yeah. So, I'm really fortunate. I've got a whole team of people behind us that keep us updated with what's happening in the online world. How on earth the DfE are realistically expecting one individual, a designated safeguarding lead, to carry out that role in addition to a role as a head or a deputy? It's kind of beyond me really. So it's a huge area, particularly when we start to look at the issues of risks and bring into play different apps, different platforms, different devices, posing different levels of risk. How on earth is a DSL supposed to manage that individually really? And for me, that's a big conundrum. And certainly where we come from at National Online Safety is we put ourselves in place to assist and to help the designated safeguarding leads and schools manage their risk on that basis.
Yeah. So that's clear about training and empowering adults around safeguarding, but what about the actual children themselves in schools?
Well, again, Rob, Keeping Children Safe in Education, the statutory guidance, it talks about teaching online safety as part of a balanced curriculum. Okay, lots of our schools will be doing that as part of PSHE, as part of discrete IT computing lessons. It's very explicit in that it mentions two documents in particular. It mentions teaching online safety in schools, and it also mentions a document called Education for a Connected World. Teaching online safety in schools is a document that was created as a non-statutory piece of guidance at the end of June. Fast forward 3 months and it's suddenly in the statutory document, so kind of make of that what you will really. What Teaching Online Safety in Schools sought to do was re-establish really the document Education for a Connected World. Education for a Connected World is a document that was created by the UK KCSIE, that's the UK Council for Child Internet Safety, and essentially it is a curriculum for online safety through early years through to 18 plus. It's built on essentially 8 building blocks of that curriculum. Okay, self-image and identity, online relationships, online reputation, online bullying, managing online information, health, well-being and lifestyle. I'm delighted to see that in there because, you know, all too often when we think about risk, we think about this kind of perpetrator-led risk, but actually there's a huge risk around health and well-being in terms of the online sense for children and young people that many people watching this webinar today will actually recognise within their own schools. We've also got privacy and security and copyright and ownership. Essentially 8 building blocks of that online safety curriculum. Really, really useful document. Education for a Connected World, created by the UK KCSIE. At National Online Safety, our resources that we provide for the classroom, so we provide individual resources for classroom, schemes of work, lesson plans, interactive videos from early years throughout the curriculum, all compliant with both teaching online safety in schools and Education for a Connected World, and indeed the forthcoming RSHE statutory guidance that will be implemented from September 2020.
So from what you're saying, that based on that inclusion in keeping children safe in education, schools are now expected to be including these building blocks in their curriculum?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way that they're looking at it, and Ofsted of course have got a role in this as well. Ofsted are looking for a seamless transition throughout from early years all the way through to secondary, and see almost a golden thread, for want of a better word, in terms of online safety training for students within that curriculum all the way through their journey through school. Ofsted, of course, are having a really close look at online safety themselves. So with effect of September, they amended their inspection framework. They also amended their inspection handbook. Okay, so Ofsted now will look into the culture in schools and to ensure that that includes online safety within their safeguarding. So they will look at those areas. They will look at online safety policies. They will expect schools to be able to discuss what their online safety policy is and look at how they deal with issues when they arise. Schools should create a safe environment for pupils in which online bullying, discrimination and peer-on-peer abuse is not tolerated and is quickly dealt with. So they Ofsted are having a real close look at particular issues around online bullying, those peer-on-peer abuse issues, and they will be testing that. Of course, they'll be looking for children to be taught to recognise online risks and also be aware of what support is available within the schools in relation to online risk for pupils as well. And that, of course, is in addition to the kind of filtering and monitoring checks that they obviously have to have in place in terms of that kind of safeguarding action there. So certainly in terms of awareness and raising awareness of online safety, major changes from 2018 being carried through again to 2019, and there's a lot of work for schools to do, frankly.
And I guess that what we were saying before about all of this activity landing at the DSL's doorstep, again highlights the need to have an integrated kind of across teaching staff understanding of these and supporting students, not just deferring to the DSL for any kind of issues.
Absolutely, and again the parent role as well. You know, and one of the things that we often talk about, we're very good at saying to children, tell a trusted adult. Tell a trusted adult. If you've got a problem, tell a trusted adult. The issue is that the majority of trusted adults in terms of online safety are not necessarily equipped to deal with the information that they're being provided. We did a survey of primary schools, 434 primary school leaders, and we asked them if they thought that the children within their schools knew more about online safety than they did. 72% came back and said actually the children had more information than what the actual teaching staff did within primary schools. Now that's astonishing. That's at primary school level. Yeah. So by the time they reach secondary school, how big must that gap be at that point? You know, I'm not aware of any other subject on the curriculum where the balance of power is with children in that classroom. You know, it's not the case for maths, it's not the case for geography, English, it's simply not the case. Online safety, 9 times out of 10, we're looking at children, young people having more information than the trusted adult who's supposed to be teaching them. That's wrong. We've got to do something about that. And that's what we at National Online Safety do.
So throughout all of this guidance, what kind of risks should we be aware of?
Well, one of the things that really concerns me about online safety is obviously the risks are the risks are the risks. They're there. You know, we've got perpetrator-led risks. We've got those feelings of sort of health and well-being risks that we see quite, frequently now. Certainly, one of the issues that I always consider is that these risks are not static. They change and they become more prevalent and become lower dependent upon which apps and games and devices children are using. So again, going back to a DSL or any trusted adult, how on earth do you keep up with that? Well, the permutations are endless, really. Again, you can have an app that's been developed completely innocently, and all of a sudden there's a change to that app. Suddenly there's now a chat stream being added to that app. Suddenly now there's ability for in-game purchases and these sorts of issues. So not only have we got a set of risks, we then put them against a moving feast of different platforms, apps, games, and devices, and then the fact that those apps and games and devices can change instantly anyway. So how on earth do you keep up with all that as a DSL? And that is the question, really. And certainly in terms of what we do, we've got that whole team behind us. We've got people whose sole responsibility it is to stay up to speed with what's happening on the internet. It's their sole responsibility to do that, and that's great. And that enables us to be able to respond to this kind of statutory guidance and be responsive to change and flex, really, and be very adaptive in terms of what the current online risks are and how we can respond to that and how we can empower our schools and the trusted adults in our schools to actually protect children and young people.
So what's your advice and help that you would give to schools to help respond to this?
Well, through the partnership that we've developed with you guys, we provide training specifically for designated safeguarding leads to help them understand what risks are out there for children and young people, to help them understand what their role is as a designated safeguarding lead in response to online safety. We also provide SEND training, so training for specialists, professionals who are working with vulnerable children, with SEND pupils. We look at 7 different categories of vulnerability, and dependent upon what the most prevalent vulnerability is within a child, which risks are more likely to be heightened in the online sense, we provide SEND training. We provide training for every single member of staff and school governors, and we do mean middays by that. So, because the reality is, if a child or young person is going to make a disclosure, it's not necessarily going to be to a teaching member of staff. It could quite easily be to a midday supervisor, could quite easily be to any. So whole school community, again, going back to that keeping children safe in education statutory requirement, train your DSL, train your SEND coordinator, train all of your staff. And of course we don't stop there, because then we're now onto the children. So we provide interactive lesson resources, schemes of work, lesson plans, all the way through the curriculum stages, all based on Education for a Connected World, again, that document that's referenced in Keeping Children Safe in Education. Provide those resources for teachers to play out in the classroom, to equip children, young people. And over and above that, we also provide that parents course. So really importantly that we've got engagement with parents, that our schools are able to effectively roll out very easily videos and parent guides. We have guides on each individual app. We've got over 80 of them now. We produce a new one every single Wednesday, so responsive to the changes in the online world, ensuring that parents have got the information that they need to be able to engage and have conversations, and meaningful conversations, age-appropriate meaningful conversations with their children and young people. But we don't stop there, because we've also got to talk about current online risks.
Yeah.
I remember the subtle change that took place this year where designated safeguarding leads have to access regularly updated training to stay ahead of current online risks. So every single month we provide a webinar. Okay, so every single month we provide a webinar, we look at any changes to legislation, we talk about any policy announcements, anything that's been in the news in relation to online safety, any changes to games, apps, devices that might increase or reduce risk to children and young people. So every single month we provide access for the designated safeguarding lead or a nomination from the designated safeguarding lead to actually attend a webinar and get their monthly update. Over and above that, we also produce a weekly newsletter. So our schools are regularly updated. The benefit of the weekly newsletter, of course, is you can circulate that around the whole school community and keep everybody updated. So it really is kind of a one-stop shop solution in terms of hitting all of those target buttons that we've talked about today in terms of keeping children safe in education, the Ofsted inspection framework, the Ofsted handbook, and indeed things like Education for a Connected World and teaching online safety in schools. A one-stop shop solution.
Fantastic. And I guess that, you know, the training and education products that National Online Safety provide are really complementary to a technology-based solution that forms part of the kind of wider digital safety culture. So Smoothwall's own suite of products, Filter, Firewall, Classroom Manager and Monitor and Record Keeping, all kind of work together with that education and help, you know, provide DSLs with the tools they need to do the job.
Absolutely. The two things go hand in hand, you know, as far as I'm concerned. When just one part of that jigsaw is about raising awareness, and of course then the filtering products and the monitoring products that Smoothwall provide help us to keep that whole school community safe.
Yeah, excellent. And yeah, we'll talk about these products in a future webinar. But thank you very much to Chris for joining us today. Thank you for listening, and if you've got any questions, please drop us a line, send us a message on the details below. Thank you.